Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, we drive out to the country to watch the Pikmin Bloom. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I am joined, as I am always joined by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. We've got a good show for you today. We are going to be talking about the news from the week, including everything about Nintendo Switch Online Plus Expansion Pack. And then on Thursday, we are ranking the power-ups from Metroid Dread. But Mark, in the meantime, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Of course, when this episode's release is, we will be in November. We will be past Halloween. So, Patrick, knowing you, I'm guessing by now you guys have drug out the Christmas tree. You've got the holiday tunes playing. You're wearing coordinated sweaters. This is all sounding familiar and absolutely correct, right?
Right. Famously, we go all out for Christmas. No, I was telling you before the show that I could see my neighbors across the street have a giant inflatable Santa, like behind the house. I can see it out my bedroom window from across the street, giant, like 2-story tall inflatable Santa. And I can't tell if they're like keeping it in the backyard like forever, if they're about to like move him out front like the second we turn over.
Right. It reminds me of like at Disneyland, they've been putting their Christmas tree backstage.
Of course.
They've been putting it together for weeks now. So, like tomorrow morning, basically, they can haul it out front. And I'm assuming that your neighbors are doing something very similar, that the moment Halloween is officially over, that baby's coming to the front yard.
I mean, you save time when you invest in preparation, right? Like
that's right. You don't want to be caught unaware. Christmas comes so quickly.
Speaking of things that come quickly, my copy of Sonic Forces for the Nintendo Switch. Would you like to borrow it? You can certainly try. All you gotta do is email us at nintendocartridgesociety@gmail.com and give us a mailing address where we can send you my copy of Sonic Forces for the Nintendo Switch. You play it for as long as you want. You send it back. It doesn't cost you anything. There may be a copy of Untitled Goose Game in there instead of Sonic Forces. But, Goose is chaotic. No one can control it. No one should expect to control it. I feel as though I sometimes am tricked into believing that I control it, but I do not. I only administer the goose's will. So yeah, get on that list.
Patrick, the more you talk about it, the more and more it begins to sound like it's the Untitled Goose Game program. That it has slowly taken over, and now you are just executing its will.
Yeah,
and the Sonic Forces
I
being
believe
pushed into the shadows.
I believe you said it correctly, but for a second, my mind heard entitled Goose Game, which is maybe what's happening here.
Well, another thing you can do is you can leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcast. We appreciate it so much. It helps Patrick and I grow the show. And we just love reading everything that people leave in the reviews. So thank you so much to everybody who has done so ever. If you leave us a 5-star review on the US Apple Podcast Store, we'll see it and we will give you a shout out on the show. If you leave us a review anywhere else, please send us an email, hit us up on Twitter, and letting us know that you left a review, and we'll give you a shout out that way.
Yeah, and it's not just reviews. However your podcatcher allows you to interact with the show, if it's faving it, giving it a certain number of stars, the highest number preferably, then hit us up. We'll give you a shout out on the show. We appreciate everyone who does. Mark, we have an email before we get down to business. An email from Jason here. Jason writes the subject line: Pikmin Game & Watch. So, Mark, look, we are still in Game & Watch month. The listener is not in Game & Watch month anymore, but I just need you to set your mind in Game & Watch mode for a second. Are you there?
Yep.
Okay,
I am
great.
ready.
Okay. The email reads, "Hey, Mark and Patrick, I was listening to your latest episode, and you were wondering what a Pikmin game for Game & Watch would be. I pitched to you. Olimar is throwing Pikmin at things like old carnival games where you have to knock them over. It's essentially the milk jug game, but you throw Pikmin. Love the show. Keep it up."
Ooh, that's a good idea. That's a really good one.
Yeah, that's it's so simple and so like uh it falls in that like line of Game and Watch things where it's just like, oh yes, it's an immediately obvious setup. Like
Yep.
everyone gets a carnival game where you're trying to knock down milk jugs.
What do you think
Have
would
you ever
win in the Pikmin universe?
like a giant strawberry?
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
that's probably right because I was thinking like, oh, you know how like some of those carnival games you could win like a goldfish or something. I'm trying to
Yeah.
think what is the goldfish equivalent in the Pikmin universe? Because what is lower than a Pikmin?
No, Pikmin are like the bottom of the barrel. I mean, it's yeah, I mean, I
Although I
wonder if
guess that
you
metaphor doesn't really carry because it's not like a baseball or whatever that you would throw at a carnival game is
right,
lower
you're
than
throwing
than a goldfish.
sure, what's the hierarchy? What's higher up on the food chain? Baseball or goldfish?
Right.
All right, Mark, let's get into what we've been playing this week. So I have now gone back to The Legend of Zelda: The Skyward Sword. Something that Mark, you teased that you were probably going to get back into since you hit sort of a wall in Metroid Dread. Have you also been playing Skyward Sword?
No, I didn't have a chance this week, so I made no forward progress in Metroid Dread. I just kind of like am where I am at this point,
Yeah, yeah.
and I didn't put any time into Skyward Sword yet.
So I believe when last we spoke, you had just finished the dungeon when like you revisit Faron Woods, right?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
So I just caught up with that.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, got the whip in there and fought that boss, which is super cool. With like the many arms, and you have to like take apart this like clockwork creature. It's very cool and very fun, and like my God, every time I play that game, I am just like freshly reminded of how fun it is.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
like it is definitely one that I can't play for a super like long amount of time. Like I just get physically tired swinging my arms around. But like it's just super fun and engaging every time I do it.
Yeah, I mean I feel the same way. I am eager to get back into it. I just think it's um I don't know where it would fit on my list of Zelda, like personal Zelda
Yeah.
rankings, but I'm wondering after we finish playing it, I think we might need to revisit our definitive ranking of the Zelda series because I think we ranked Skyward Sword at the bottom because neither of us had played it, and
Yeah.
I do not think that would be the case anymore for me.
Well, and I believe that we ranked just the console Zelda games, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, this was an early ranking. This is when we like discovered that we could do ranking episodes. So yeah, it may be time to revisit it anyway.
Um, so I also have not made any forward, like I was saying, any forward progress in Metroid Dread. I thought about it. I definitely considered playing it, but so I've because I was at the final boss, couldn't beat the final boss, so decided to go back and try to get more items and more like health energy tanks so that
Yeah.
way I'm a little bit like stronger when I go to try again. And I am at the point where I'm far enough away physically in the game, like location wise, that it's going to take me maybe like 30 minutes or something to get back to the final boss. And so that is a little bit of like a mental wall that I have to overcome.
So Mark, you may think that you're like 30 minutes away from reaching the surface again, but there's a point in the game where all of the teleport pads, like the pads that let you like move between different areas on the map. You know, there are those like different transition points. There's like the train, there's the elevator, there's the teleportation. The teleporters usually go like red teleporter to red teleporter, green teleporter to
Right.
green teleporter. But there's a point where all the teleporters are connected, so you can choose when you hop on a teleporter where you want to go. So you can take it like right to Hanuba, right to the or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I have vague impressions of all of like the names of the areas, and I don't like Buenaria. I don't know if that's what it's called. It's something like that. That's the shape of the word. But you can teleport right to it and challenge the final boss again.
Oh, wait. Okay. So do I have to do anything to unlock that, or just like by getting to this point in the game, it just happens?
You have to do something to unlock it, but I don't remember what it was or when exactly it happens. But by the time you have faced the final boss,
Yeah.
you have done it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's unlikely that I'd like missed it or something.
I mean, that's my understanding.
Okay, I'll go and check. I think I'm not that far away from a teleporter. I guess at no time are you super far away from
Right.
one. Okay. Well, that's okay. That changes things. That's good to know.
So it may be less than a half-hour walk to get back to the boss.
Well, speaking of Metroid Dread, Tetris 99 had a Tetris Maximus Cup this past weekend, and it was Metroid Dread themed.
Yeah, sure was. And it was super fun. I got in there like early Saturday morning and played a bunch of it. I did not score a Tetris Maximus at any point. I don't know if my skills are rusty or what. But I was even having a hard time like getting into the top 10. Which normally I can do. Because you want to hear what what the top 10 music is. Because it's always like the most intense music.
Uh-huh.
But it's just the fighting the Emmy music that like
Yeah. I wondered about that because like I thought one of the cool things about this theme is that the progression kind of was like cool and made sense of the
yeah
music. Like
yeah
the initial one is kind of that main like Metroid like exploration theme, including the fanfare at the very beginning.
yeah
And
well, and
then
it starts silent, which is so cool. Like for the first like 15 seconds you're just dropping pieces in silence.
Yeah, I thought it was really neat. Patrick, I have a Tetris 99 strategy question.
Okay.
So when you're being targeted by like six different people or whatever, and you're the left side where it shows you
Yeah.
how many impending rows are headed
Yes.
your ways, what are you even supposed to do to combat that?
You're
Like
supposed to score lines.
just like combos? Like is that like you just it's just like
Combos help, yeah. So the way that the scoring works, if you don't have any incoming lines, then everything that you score ends up contributing to attacks against other players. If you have attacks incoming, you can counter them by scoring those higher row scores. But you don't want to do single line clears because a single line clear doesn't defend you at all.
okay.
So you want doubles, triples, or Tetrises, and if you can like layer combos on top of that, then it all the better, right? So if it's the second part of the combo, it'll deal 1 point more of damage. If it's the third part of the combo, it'll deal +2 damage. Fourth part +3. So like yeah, combos and like big line clears will protect you from incoming attacks.
Got it. Got it. Okay. That's good to know.
I mean, just like most of my advice for Tetris 99 is play fast, play as fast as possible. Because you can be attacked by like 5 people at once, and the only way to beat them back is to throw down as many lines as fast as you can.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
So yeah, we're both playing Tetris 99. Mark, I assume you did end up getting the theme at some point.
I did. Yes, I
Yeah.
successfully got the theme.
Sarah and I have also been playing, continue to play Tetris Effect Connected, because the game rules. It's just so much fun. I don't have anything new to say about it, but it's just very good.
Connected like they added a multiplayer aspect, is that right?
Yeah, so we haven't really dug into that yet.
Oh, okay.
The just sort of like the mainline, like I'm gonna call it story mode, but that's not right. Like the regular like sequencing of things that they put you through is so compelling that like it's hard to make us do something else. Like I kind of want the game to just hypnotize me the way it does, and just experience that.
So I think we want to talk about the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack
Yeah,
before. I think that'll be a pretty meaty. So before we get into that, I've
yeah,
also been playing Pikmin Bloom, which kind of released out of nowhere. This is the Pikmin AR walking game that was revealed a few months back. It's a collaboration between Nintendo and Niantic, the same company responsible for Pokemon Go. And but yeah, the release was a surprise, at least to me. They released it last week. I picked it up, I downloaded it. I've been messing around with it a little bit. I definitely haven't put it through its like full paces. And for me, it's I'm not that interested in doing
Yeah.
it. Like there was nothing in it that really grabbed me. I am struck how often I forget that the Pikmin are actually like really cute and full of
They're so
personality.
cute. Yes.
Like I enjoy Pikmin very much, but basically from what I've gleaned, the way it works is, it asks for access to like the health information stored on your phone so it can see how many steps you're walking. And as you walk more, you're able to like grow more Pikmin essentially. And so these Pikmin become part of your horde and they follow you around. And when you're going for walks, you can do things like plant flowers as you're walking, and doing that gives you like certain boosts to the amount of steps that you're taking. So like, okay, like it takes 10,000 steps to unlock to like grow this certain type of Pikmin. But if you turn on this power up and you're planting flowers as you walk, then you get a 20% boost. So it takes less steps to do it, like that sort of thing. And
Yeah.
and then when you're not walking, if you want to just like open the app, you can kind of like play with your Pikmin, and you toss them little beads of dew, and different colored dew turn like the flowers on the top of their head different colors. And you can gather those petals, that way you have like more petals to plant. Like it's all really cute, but I did not find it particularly motivating to like make me want to go for walks. And it almost just felt like another thing that I have to manage that is constantly telling me to move. Do you know what I mean? Where like
Mm.
I recently got an Apple Watch, and it is constantly buzzing, at me being like, time to do this, time to do that. Like you still have time, and it's like, I know I need to work out. Like stop giving me the stress of. I think it's supposed to be motivational, but to me it just feels like it's too much, and
Yeah,
that's how
it's
I
like
feel.
nagging. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I feel about Pikmin Bloom, where it's just like, hey, it gives push notifications where it's like, hey, the Pikmin would love to see you, and like all that kind of stuff. And it's like, leave me alone. There's too much going on in my life. I cannot handle trying to manage the expectations of Pikmin.
That's so funny. I went for a long walk today. And I had just downloaded Pikmin Bloom, but I hadn't like messed around with it at all.
Yeah.
So like while I was out, I was like, oh, I'll open it up and I can like get started here. And then there was like, I had to like sign in, and I was like, no, forget it. So I don't know. For me, like I like going on the walk like enough on its own, that like also having to look at my phone is a little like, well, wait a minute, why am I doing this?
Yeah, I do
Yeah.
think one of the nice things is that there is like a kind almost like AR mode where you can walk around, and you'll see Pikmin in the environment, and you can like snap photos, all that kind of stuff. And one of the mechanics in the game is, if you take pictures on your walk, the Pikmin will like choose their favorite photo that you
Oh,
took on
that's
the
cute.
walk, and like give you
That is
bonus.
cute.
So it's like it's cute. There's a lot going on there. But one thing is nice is that if you as long as you have the footsteps, like the steps tracking turned on, which I think you have to in order to use the application, you don't have to have your phone out during the walk. You can,
Okay.
it'll just keep track of your steps, and then like at the end of the day or whenever you want to do it, you can check in with at the app, and it'll give you credit for everything that you've done. But so I think it's cute. But it's just like it's too much. Like I don't need another
Yeah.
thing to try to manage, if that makes sense.
Or at least another obligation.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, should we get into it? Should we talk about Nintendo Switch Online plus expansion pack?
Yeah, let's do it.
So my Nintendo 64 controller arrived on Friday. So I was able to spend some time playing those games with that controller. And I just want to start everything that we're talking about by saying I honestly don't know how you play the Nintendo 64 games without the Nintendo 64 controller, because the button mapping on those things seems like a nightmare.
Yeah, I haven't tried yet. I got my Nintendo 64 controllers last week as well. I forgot how huge these things are.
They're very big.
So big. And so the packaging is also very big, especially when you compare it to the like NES controllers or the Super Nintendo controllers. for Switch, like those are so like thin and svelte that like the packaging
Yeah.
is not that big. So I have not actually like I downloaded the Nintendo 64 Switch Online app. I opened it and like looked at the titles and everything, but I haven't tried to play a Nintendo 64 game as of yet. I know that there were some complaints about the emulation not being very precise, and I've to be honest, I don't think I could. I would be able to notice.
I mean, so I haven't noticed it. I know there's like the graphical issues with like not rendering the fog in the same way
Right?
that the
Yeah.
original hardware would, um, which I expect I'll feel as I get like deeper in Mario Kart, and if I play Ocarina on this thing. Um, but I am noticing even in something like so the Nintendo 64 games that I've played or messed around with in some capacity so far are Star Fox 64, Super Mario Kart, or Mario Kart 64, Super Mario 64, and a little bit of Dr. Mario 64. And Dr. Mario 64 is the only one of these three that I didn't feel some kind of lag on the controller. I felt it. I mean, Star Fox 64 is one of my favorite Nintendo 64 games, and my favorite Star Fox game, and the game that I've just played to death, right? So I feel like I know that game very well, and like I can feel how to control it just like in my bones. Um, and I know that like it's sort of like trailing behind where
Oh,
I'm like pointing the
uh-huh.
reticle and stuff. And so like I don't really know what the solution for that is, and I don't really know if that'll ever improve, or if like that's just what happens with like a wireless controller and HDMI, like all of those like tiny little steps being like one more point removed from being hardwired into a Nintendo 64, which is then connected by like coaxial cable into a CRT TV. That all happens like instantaneously.
Yeah, that is a little bit of a bummer. I wonder. I know that with the Super Nintendo Classic Edition, when there was reports of like lag, one of the things the Nintendo recommended was if your if your TV has like a gaming mode
Yeah.
to engage that. I never did, so I have no idea if that would like alleviate some of it or not. But yeah, I have heard similar reports or read similar reports of people experiencing lag when playing these
I mean,
Nintendo 64 games.
yeah, the thing that's so weird about that though is that like I only feel the lag because I know what the original feels like. Do
Mm.
you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That if there was if the game had never existed before and I didn't have a ton of experience with it, I would just be like, "Oh, this is just how the game controls," and my mind would like adjust it, right?
Right.
Um, but yeah, like just the necessity of it being on different hardware means that like my muscles know it and can feel the difference.
Was there any learning curve in going back to a Nintendo 64 controller?
Yes, there definitely was. I felt like my hands were way closer together than they used to be, and that's probably just because I've gotten bigger since the last time I played Nintendo 64. Um, I think also and Mark, I will be interested to hear if you have this like kind of sense memory as well, um, or just what your experience of Nintendo 64 controllers was originally. But I feel like the thumbstick is more responsive.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
like it kind of snaps back more livelily than I remember. And that could be because when's the last time I touched a new Nintendo 64 controller, right? Like, I don't know, 25 years. But yeah, like it like just like flicking the stick and it like returning to center position, like felt too good. Do you know what I mean? Like I expected it to be looser.
Oh yeah, that's so interesting. Um Man, all of the Nintendo 64 controllers we had by the time that, the last time I played with them,
Yeah,
they were beat to hell, you know what I mean?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah,
yeah, I do that man, that is cuz when the Super Nintendo Classic Edition controllers came out, and same with like the ones for Switch, like I had forgotten how like the feeling of the like kind of like pattern of the plastic,
yeah,
because
yeah.
the ones I had were all like worn down and all that kind of stuff. So that is really interesting. I do think it'll take me a little bit of getting used to using a Nintendo 64 controller again for sure.
Yeah. So I'm also a little bummed that there's no the rewind feature isn't available on the Nintendo 64. I don't think I tried to engage it and it didn't work. Maybe I'm doing it wrong, but
Oh, because you're
um,
doing it using the Nintendo 64 controller.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Because like the rewind is is helpful in playing like the other games. I use it. I played a bunch of the Sega Genesis too. I played Echo the Dolphin, Golden Axe, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and Gunstar Heroes. And in playing Sonic, it was great to have a rewind feature with Sonic the Hedgehog. Like that's how a Sonic game should be played always, because you're going as fast as you can. Like you're bound to make stupid mistakes, and you don't want to have to like start the whole thing over again. Just like rewind a little bit.
So I have been playing the Genesis collection. I mean, specifically, I've been playing Sonic the Hedgehog 2. I don't know how much time you've put into it, Patrick, but I'm loving it in a way that like I never ever expected to love it. Even after, playing Sonic Mania, um this feels different. It's like my experience with it is different because now I feel a little more comfortable, with like understanding how Sonic works and how it's like supposed to move. And so I'm appreciating, I guess I'll say like the design of it a little bit more, where it's like, oh yeah, the first act in a zone really acts as like an introduction. You get, the different mechanics, the different enemy types in the zone, and then the second part of it kind of like messes with it, where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, like it's a little bit, it feels more advanced, it feels more difficult, because it's like, okay, we set the stage in the first act, showing you what's going to be in here, and then now we're gonna like amp up the difficulty a little bit. Although I have to tell you, I forgot that I could do a spin dash. And so there was like a part in one of the zones where you have to spin dash in order to like break through something so you can
Yeah.
continue through the level. And I saw, like Tails like spin dashing all over the place like a little jerk. And I'm like, how do I do that? So I had to I had to look it up because I had forgotten even, even though it's
Hold
featured,
down. Hold down.
yeah, even though it's featured in Sonic Mania, I had forgotten all about like how
That's
to do the
funny.
spin dash. And so I had to look up the controls again. So I'm by no means a Sonic expert, but like the music is banging. I'm really enjoying Sonic the Hedgehog 2 a lot.
Yeah, and I mean honestly, there's like a lot of I don't know, like good games in this collection, but like I was having a lot of fun playing Gunstar Heroes. I don't know if you've ever played that before, but it's like a almost like a Contra like, but with like way more personality. Um, that I was having like a ton of fun with. And I was having fun with Echo the Dolphin until like I hit a barrier. I forgot or I maybe never knew how fast that game is. Like you're this dolphin and you're just like zipping through the environment. It's sort of nuts. And then I played not through Golden Axe, but like as much as I'm ever gonna play of like medieval beat 'em up. Um, and it's a solid one of those where you see a bunch of crazy enemies and like do weird stuff.
Um, I have never really gotten far enough in Echo the Dolphin to get to the point where you're zipping around. My memory of playing that game is not being able to figure out how to really get past that first um like part where you're
The
just swimming around in the cove or whatever.
Yeah, well, and I am stuck in a cove at some point where it's like you have to find the something key. And I was looking for that key and I did not find it, and then I stopped playing.
It is on my list of things to like at least get past the first level. It reminds me of, playing the Game Boy A Boy and His Blob Rescue of Princess Blobette, and never for the life of me being able to figure out that game. And so only as an adult watching a YouTube walkthrough and figuring out what you're supposed to do,
Right.
I am determined to similarly conquer Echo the Dolphin, or at least get past that first area.
So like it is just on the subject of like the expansion pack in general. I do think it's interesting that like in this moment I am finding about as much value from the Nintendo 64 as I am from the Genesis. That like there are obviously there are games in the Nintendo 64 collection that I want to play, but that there are a bunch in the Genesis collection that are at the very least curiosities. But like also just like some games I genuinely want to play.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. I was actually really surprised. Like, the reason I started with the Genesis games with Sonic is because I opened up the Nintendo 64 app, and there like you're saying, there are games I want to play. I want to replay Star Fox 64. I want to play Mario Kart 64 again. Like, there is definitely stuff in there that I want to play, but I could not resist diving into the Sega Genesis collection. And part of it, I think, is that you know, the I never owned a Genesis. I only ever played it at friend's house, and like playing Sonic the Hedgehog 2 and looking at some of these other games, it feels just like opening up a whole nother world to me, kind of like
Right, yeah, a
it.
portal to another dimension.
Yeah, like it gives me a lot of the same, like fun, nostalgic feeling that I get when I play Super Nintendo games, except they're all new experiences to me, and that's fairly rare. And so, yeah, there's been something about the Genesis. Even when you turn on the Sega Genesis collection for
Yeah.
Nintendo Switch Online,
Sega.
yeah, it's all very appealing, and that surprised me how much I have been eager to get it into the Genesis games.
But we will, I'm sure, we'll continue to talk about these collections for weeks to come as we like spend more time with them, and certainly as more games get announced for them. But in the meantime, Mark, though that's what we've been playing this week, let's get into the new releases and what we might be playing next week.
On Thursday, November 4th, Just Dance 2022 is released. And, speaking of A Boy and His Blob, the Wii version of The Boy and His Blob is being released on the Switch eShop.
Mark, are you gonna get it?
I might pick it up. I actually don't have any idea how much it costs, but if it's like $20, I think I might. If A Boy and His Blob is a series that I've only ever like played the Game Boy version, but I do have a soft spot for the series as a whole.
Yeah, and I like the way the Wii one looks. Like I really like the aesthetic of like just take like hand drawn animated, like genuinely hand drawn sprites and put them in a game. It's really appealing to me.
And then on Friday, November 5th, Animal Crossing New Horizons Happy Home Paradise DLC is released in addition to the big 2.0 update for Animal Crossing.
Very excited about that. I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, I have a lot of ground to make up. I have to basically start from scratch, whole new island, whole new
There's
experience.
no basically about it. You just have to
yeah,
do
that's
that.
right. There's no qualification needed. I absolutely have to start over again.
And will you be doing that? Obviously, you have subscribed to the expansion pack, so you get this the NSO plus expansion pack. So you get Happy Home Paradise and the 2.0 update for Freezies. So are you going to do it? Are you going to get back in?
Yeah, I think I will. I obviously have a lot of other games to play, and so I don't plan on like mainlining it.
Well, but Animal Crossing is never meant to be mainlined anyway. Like,
yeah, but
collectively,
in the beginning,
we
there's
all
a lot.
did it wrong.
Yeah, that's true. But in the beginning, there's like a lot you can do, to get set up and everything. And so maybe I'll try to get some of that out of the way before the expansion pack is released. But yeah, I think it'll probably be a while before I can actually like take advantage of the stuff in the expansion pack. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wonder from zero, from just like turning the game on, how long it takes you to get to Happy Home Paradise, right? Like, or if you can just like start on the first day, go to the airport, and just put you to work, right? Like, because it shouldn't require you to have like unlocked any items or even have any bells or Nook Miles or anything, right? Like, it's kind of its own experience.
Yeah, that's a good point. I also wonder if like Harv's Island, like the expanded version, will just be available now for people that start playing day one. You know what I mean? So in that way, I guess it's an interesting experiment.
Yeah. All right. Well, those are the new releases. Let's close that out. Which brings us to a regular segment on our show. It is time for 433. In 1952, American composer John Cage wrote a piece called 433, wherein a performer or group of performers didn't play their instruments for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. For the purposes of this show, our instruments are talking about Nintendo. So, for the duration of one performance of 433, Mark and I will talk about something not at all Nintendo related. thus fulfilling the contract of the piece. Mark, we have a suggestion today from listener Aaron. Aaron writes, I had a topic for 433. Have you ever entered and or won a sweepstakes or raffle prize? Being careful not to mention Nintendo. He offers his own experience. He says, a couple years ago, I entered a sweepstakes for a Japanese radio station in LA, and I won a prize package consisting of about 40 cups of Alove yogurt, a t-shirt, and a towel. I had to eat at least 2 cups of yogurt for every meal for a couple days, but before the yogurt, before the expiration date passed. Looking forward to the next episode. Aaron, Mark, have you ever won a sweepstakes or even entered one?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've totally entered sweepstakes before. Have I won one? Yes, I guess actually I have. So, when I first moved to LA, like I must have been here for only a few months, and so I've always really enjoyed Mystery Science Theater 3000. And while the show was on, they've brought it back recently with Netflix and another like independent Kickstarter most recently. But there were years where there was nothing, and so a lot of people who worked on the same thing had another project called Cinematic Titanic, and they would go on tour. And I won from like a movie website that I follow. I won tickets to go see them when they were in LA, and so that was part of my like. When I was new enough to LA, where it was just like, man, this is like such a cool, like magical city.
Yeah, yeah. That is a fun phase. And the sweepstakes that I entered and won something is sort of related to a similar story. But there was a while where we used to go to the Simpsons trivia at the Meltdown. It was a monthly contest called the Stonecutters, and Sarah and I and our friends Michael and Michelle would compete and frequently win. Because Michael and I are insane Simpsons trivia nuts, and so the Simpsons artist John, I think his name is Mahat, Mahot, Mathot, doesn't matter. We won a contest and he drew 4 like sketches of Simpsons characters, and we have 2 of them up in our bedroom. We have one that's Kirk Van Houten, Milhouse's dad, saying meet me later at the single dad's bar, and the other one is Duff Man, and says you guys are the winners. Oh yeah.
Did you get to choose which characters, or were those?
Yes, we got to choose which characters, and Michael and Michelle have the other 2, and they are Santa's Little Helper, and now I can't remember who the other one was. We wanted weird characters.
Yeah,
you know?
no, that's amazing. Those are such good pulls. But
right at the same time, Sarah entered like a sweepstakes through the AV Club to win an original sketch of Bart Simpson by Matt Groening, and we won it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so we've got a lot of like Simpsons stuff.
I guess if somebody really wanted one, you could probably go to the Thai restaurant in Hollywood, Jitlada, and just like steal one from under the table, because they have lots of Matt Groening drawings.
Matt Groening loves Jitlada, and I guess would just always draw stuff there.
But I entered a lot of sweepstakes as a kid. I don't know if you did, like sweepstakes for like Nickelodeon Rules Your School and like all that kind of stuff. I would write. I never won anything like that, but I totally entered every sweepstakes I could as a kid.
My friend Pete, his cousin Adam, always used to call into radio stations for those things and just win concert tickets, because he did it all the time. Like he was always getting free concert tickets, because I guess like for the most part, like not that many people actually do that, or like sitting around during the day calling into the radio station.
I actually, that's such a good point. I wonder, especially now where I think less and less people are listening to terrestrial radio, if it becomes easier and easier to win these contests.
And that is the applause. As we were accompanied today by listener Steven. Thank you, Steven, for that perfect recording of 433. All right, Mark, let's get into the news.
last week it was reported that Nintendo has closed 2 of its North American offices in Redwood City in California and Toronto in Canada. Nintendo's statement about the closures reads in part, quote, Nintendo of America headquarters are in Redmond, Washington and Vancouver, British Columbia. We are moving more of our employees and operations into those headquarters and will be closing small satellite offices in Toronto, Ontario and Redwood City, California over time. End quote.
So, yeah, that's, I mean, is it actually downsizing or is it, like, what's happening here?
So it's unclear. I think Kotaku's the one who initially broke the story, and their reporting was that 100 employees would be displaced. So I guess it's possible that some of those will be offered like relocation, but it does seem like that there is going to be at least some amount of downsizing.
Yeah. I mean, especially from like Toronto to Vancouver, like that's a move, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, and on the same day, the senior vice president over like marketing and sales, who is based out of the Redwood City office, I'm didn't write down the name and am forgetting it right now, but he announced that he's going to Yum Brands for KFC, and so it seems like just some sort of restructuring, yeah, like and consolidating of sales and marketing.
Yeah. And that, I mean, I think that's an important little like footnote to this is that like this isn't anything like game development related. Like these are just they're not studios, they're offices. So they may be part of what drives the communications, especially like the Americas based communications. But this is not as though like they're cutting back on any sort of development or game stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. It is. I mean, it is super, super rare for Nintendo to make moves like this.
Yeah.
Like famously during the Wii U era, um, former Nintendo president Satoru Iwata, like took no salary. So, in basically like promised not to lay off people. And so it's rare for Nintendo to restructure like this. It's also interesting that Doug Bowser, who's the current president of Nintendo of America, he was the senior vice president of sales and marketing. So the role that this person whose name I'm forgetting is leaving, that was his role before he was promoted to president of Nintendo of America. So, I mean, what does this all mean? Like, we will never know because Nintendo operates pretty secretly, but just interesting.
Here's something that I think is very funny is that there seems to be like an executive pipeline between Nintendo and Yum Brands, right? Because Reggie came from Pizza Hut.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I guess in a lot of ways, the target audience is very similar.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean it is maybe a little like humbling and or humiliating to be like, yeah, selling you video games is the same as selling you crappy
Fried
junk
chicken.
food, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the same thing.
Mere moments after the Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack launched, the service was data mined, no surprise there, leading to all kinds of speculation about future games for the announced services, and even potential mystery emulators for an unannounced system. So first, the additional platform. The current emulators are all numbered. So the Nintendo Entertainment System is number 1, Super Nintendo is number 2, the N64 is number 3, and Genesis is number 5, which means there's a mystery number 4 that is as yet totally unaccounted for.
I love this. This is my favorite kind of like mystery where it's just like, here's a number. We got a number with no information next to it. What's that number mean?
Like a few weeks before, just a few weeks ago, like before the Nintendo 64 Switch Online and Genesis Switch Online were revealed, there were rumors and reports from outlets like Nintendo Life that a Game Boy/Game Boy Color library would be added to Nintendo Switch Online, and that hasn't happened or did not happen. So I guess like that could be it, but weird that it just got skipped.
Yeah, it is weird. I I mean the numbering is also like just strange because it's like, what do those numbers represent, right? Like were they like intended release order on the Switch Online, because they're not if NES is 1, SNES is 2, and N64 is 3, that makes sense so far. But then the Genesis is 5 means it's also not like, you know, like actual release order, right? Because the Genesis came out before the Super NES even. So like, I don't know. It's the numbering is just very like funny and sort of like random to me.
Yeah. But I don't know. I still don't entirely know what to make of the like Game Boy Color rumors, just
Yeah.
because they came out of nowhere, hit like really hot for about a week, and then we haven't heard anything about it since. So
Well, yeah, and I like if I recall correctly, the like insiders that were talking about it were saying that there like is another there is another library coming to the Nintendo Switch Online, and being like Game Boy or Game Boy Color. It's I think the specificity of the Game Boy and Game Boy Color thing was the most speculative part about that like they knew something was coming
yeah,
and
that
made a guess.
that could be. I mean, Nintendo Life did specifically say that they confirmed, that it was like Game Boy Color. But
Oh, well,
that
yeah,
is,
I don't know.
I mean, that's one source out of, a lot of people who were talking about it.
Right.
Another thing that come out of the data mine is that the ROMs for the Nintendo 64 and Genesis games also appear on numbered lists, and there are at least 38 Nintendo 64 games and 52 Genesis games um on the list. So, and the lists are also alphabetical, so it's possible to like kind of logic out what some of the missing games could be, like for the Nintendo 64, like Smash Brothers, Wave Race 64, Mario Party 1 through 3 are all presumed to be among those unlisted games.
Which is all super compelling and like I mean if 38 games come to the Nintendo 64, um that that value seems undeniable, right? Um Even with like sort of substandard emulation, like 38 games is a lot of games. Um yeah, I don't know what's your take on this, Mark? Do you think we're actually going to get all 38 of these games?
No, I would be, or no, I don't think so. Although at the library at launch is not huge for Nintendo 64 games. And so
Yeah.
I feel like to get to 38 at the rate that they seem to meter these things out, that would take a really long time. But also I wonder if it's like 38 games in various stages of like development and testing, and some of them aren't going to work out, right? Like they can't emulate it,
Right.
like the emulation doesn't pan out or whatever. And so no, I would be shocked if we end up with 38, but I
Yeah, me too.
love to be surprised. I mean, there's still some heavy hitters that haven't been revealed as, part of the launch lineup or coming soon, that would definitely be cool to have. So it'll be interesting to see.
What do you make of the sort of like speculation that Mario Party 1, 2, and 3 would all be on here? Which is being data mined at the exact same time that Super or Mario Party Superstars is released, which is just sort of a greatest hits of Mario Parties 1, 2, and 3.
I know it does. Like on the one hand, it seems strange to not put any Mario Party games on here, but on the other hand, you're like, well, you can play a lot of this content online for as part of Mario Party All Stars. So I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Is that what it's called? Mario Party All Stars? I said that, and
Superstars?
yeah, we
Yeah.
all know what we're talking about.
We all know what we're saying. We're fine.
Speaking of games that could or could not be coming to the Nintendo 64 Switch Online, which really that's a very broad category. But
Yes.
speaking of, Goldeneye 64 has been removed from Germany's official list of media harmful to young persons, which amounts to and games that are on that list, or media which is on that list, amounts to a de facto ban in the country. Items on the list are apparently automatically reviewed after 25 years of being placed on there. But the company Stadelbauer Marketing requested an early review and had to pay for that privilege. And following that review, GoldenEye 64 was removed from the list, and so is no longer on there. So if in theory somebody wanted to release Goldeneye 64 in Germany, they could. So why is this interesting? Because the company, Startled Bar Marketing, has a Nintendo connection in that they sell Nintendo themed toys in the region.
Interesting.
So, and by that, like, seemingly looking at their website, it's like they sell Mario Kart themed like cars and toys. There's this little like um drone like helicopter thing that's Mario in a cape that you can make fly around. Like that's the
It's
kind of
fun.
stuff. Yeah,
I like that.
that's the kind of stuff that they have on their website. So it doesn't seem like anything like directly gaming related. So why this company? Are they acting as like a third party to by like Nintendo's request to try to like throw people off the scent? Is this all generally meaningless, which could very well be
Well,
true?
I mean, okay. Here's the reason why I don't think it's meaningless. 20 if everything is reviewed after 25 years, that means that Goldeneye would be up for review next year, right? The game came out in 1997, so like the difference between having it reviewed in 2021 and 2022 is like it's infant like it's so small. Like why if they didn't have like imminent plans to try to release the game globally or in Germany or whatever, why would anyone make this push?
Yeah, I great question. I don't I do not know. Um,
And we already have evidence that there is not just evidence, but we've seen that they are going to release one of the rare developed Nintendo 64 games in the form of Banjo Kazooie. So like I don't know, it seems like they are working with the partners that like might be a little bit trickier to work with. So maybe.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, GoldenEye has a lot going on there because you have Nintendo, you have Rare, you have whoever owns the movie rights to James Bond
The
plus
Aeon Company, yeah.
yeah, and so there's just a lot. But it
Yeah.
would be cool. I mean, that would be a big deal if they can make that happen for sure.
Yeah, it's one of those games where like the library isn't complete until it's there, you know? Just like the when we talked about like Game Boy libraries and I was like, man, if they do one, I don't know if they're going to be able to release the Game Boy version of Tetris just because like the rights around Tetris are so like kind of thorny. And they've never re-released Game Boy Tetris. And you were like, well, it doesn't matter. Like they just need to like it's not a Game Boy library until Game Boy Tetris is there.
Yeah, I mean, it does feel that way with GoldenEye 64, and yeah, so it'll be. I agree with you because it's like, okay, if it was going to be re-reviewed, let's say 2022 or 2023, I can't remember when it, like maybe GoldenEye was released later in Europe or something, um, and so yeah, unless they had like plans soon, why not just wait that little bit longer?
Why not just wait?
Yeah.
Why not just wait? It looks like a worldwide release August 25th, 1997.
Yeah, crazy. Yes, I mean, I don't know. So it something to keep an eye on, or it'll be like so many of these other rumors that we'll never talk about ever again.
Yeah, very good. Very good.
The upcoming Animal Crossing New Horizons 2.0 update was announced as the final free content update, leading pendants to wonder whether we would see additional paid DLC after Happy Home Paradise. But in a statement from Nintendo, they confirmed that Happy Home Paradise will be, quote, the first and only paid DLC for Animal Crossing New Horizons. So Nintendo's position right now is this is it. This is it for free. This is it for paid. This is the whole shebang.
Right. But I mean, mostly, doesn't this just mean they're not ready to announce new paid DLC? Right. Like, I think them saying this is the first and only paid DLC for Animal Crossing just means this is the only one that we can talk about now, which may mean it is the only one.
Uh-huh.
But like, I don't really think this closes the door on there being additional paid DLC in the future.
Yeah, I feel like the way that Nintendo seems to work, it makes sense that this would be the final thing and that that
agree
team
with
is
that,
going to
yeah.
move on to other stuff, and like we'll get another Animal Crossing game 10 years from now or 5 years from now or whatever. But now they're going to move on to work on Arms 2, or I don't know. I can't remember
Right,
I
right.
can't remember which team is the Animal Crossing team and what else they touch. But yeah, I mean, for sure, never say never.
I mean, it just if you think about when Happy Home Designer came out on the heels of the New Leaf on the 3DS, that there was like 3 or 4 years between the release of those games, and the fact that we're getting this huge content update, which is basically a brand new game connected to Animal Crossing, like a year and a half after the initial release, like. Yeah, I mean there and Happy Home Designer came out of like nowhere, right? Like it seemed like something that was just like, here's more Animal Crossing stuff. So like I don't know. I think there's so much that we don't know about like their development strategies, and Nintendo is not in the habit of telling us about stuff years in advance. So of course they're gonna say this is the only one, you know?
There is now a demo for Metroid Dread available in the Switch eShop. So if you have been interested in Metroid Dread but haven't picked it up yet, go check it out.
Yeah. We both really like the game.
Yeah, it's
Go try it out.
arguably my game of the year. I haven't really thought about it, but I have really enjoyed it.
Yeah, same.
Last week we talked about Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp getting delayed out of December 2021. And while there is no official release date as of yet, the Switch eShop currently shows a revised release date of April 8th, 2022.
Mark, do you believe it?
Sure. I mean, it is a Friday.
Mhm.
It doesn't coincide with like the end of a year or quarter end date, which a lot of times will happen with placeholder dates. You'll get December 31st, 2022 or something like that.
Right.
It's so like specific that, yeah, I guess I would believe it. I mean, as good a day as any.
Yeah, I'm counting on it. I'm going to build the rest of my year around the fact that it's going to come out on April 8th.
Interesting that it showed up on the Switch eShop but like wasn't tweeted or anything.
Yeah.
But really, it's never too early to speculate on when the next Nintendo Direct might happen. And
Ooh.
they have in the past had one in January or February, so maybe they'll talk a little bit more about it then.
Yep, January Direct. We're calling it now.
Also planning our years around that one. And finally, we may have declared a moratorium on talking about Lego Super Mario, and it's good that that is reminders in the show notes because I forgot that we declared that moratorium.
I think we did. we did, right?
I mean,
There was some point where they were like adding expansion packs, and I was like, okay, I don't actually care about this
Yeah.
anymore. So we can't keep bringing it up.
that feels right to me. And so I'm going to say that even if we didn't put a moratorium on talking about
It's a
it,
good policy.
it's a good policy that we will go back to after talking about this one because it's just a little too cool to ignore. Lego announced sets for the Lego Super Mario, new sets that are based on Luigi's Mansion.
It's pretty cool.
And yes, the stuff you want to know is here. There are figures for Professor Egad, Polterpup, and King Boo.
Very cool.
And you can take either Luigi or Mario through these adventures, but neither come with the sets. I feel like these sets are like the Nintendo 64 one, where they're like expansions of the original, I
Yeah.
guess, for lack of a better term. All the new sets release on January 1st, 2022. Random pricing is set at $24.99 for the Lab and Poltergust expansion set, $39.99 for the Entryway expansion set, and $79.99 for the Haunt and Seek expansion set. So Lego Super Mario remains an incredibly expensive hobby.
Yeah, and again, you can't play any of those without already purchasing either a Lego Super Mario or Lego Luigi. So like, yeah, it absurdly expensive.
Yeah.
All right, let's close out the news. That's going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. Remember, please rate, review, and follow us on Apple Podcasts. If you like the episode, you can share it on Facebook or Twitter, wherever you share stuff. We appreciate it. when you do that. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Patrick_Ellers. Mark is at MKE Mitchell, and the show is at Nin Cart Society. We also have a Facebook page. That's just Nintendo Cartridge Society. Olivia Duncan made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ellers saying that console number 4 is the Virtual Boy. You heard it here first. And thank you for listening.
Imagine a podcast. Now, imagine a musical. Now, imagine the two of them made 1 million babies. Well, you don't have to imagine it, because it's real, and it has a name. 1 million musicals. Each month, we bring you a brand new, original podcast musical featuring talent from across Broadway, films, and TV. You'll hear tales of spooky ghosts, Wild West shootouts, adventures on the high seas, and much, much more. 1 million musicals. Only a few 100,000 to go.
A Campfire Media podcast.
Campfire.